Good morning, students. So the topic is features of the Indian Constitution. This is a very important topic, although it seems to be quite a simple topic, but is very important because Constitution is what? Constitution is a document that describes the past, the authority, as well as the limitations of the organs of the government. And government is what? Government is the main functionary body that keeps the country in law and order and works at the same time for the development and growth of individuals who are living there in that country. So, the role of government becomes very, very important, and therefore, the role of constitution is equally important because it is a guiding force for the government so that it works properly in proper direction for the welfare of the people as well as for the development of the country. What we are going to do in this session is that we are going to discuss the features of the Indian Constitution. And the features we already know about the topic, so it's just a simple kind of a revision of the things in brief. Okay, now before starting, let's discuss what is the Constitution, how we define the term Constitution. So, in very simple terms, the Constitution can be defined as the basic principles and laws of a nation, state, or social group that determine the powers and duties of the government and guarantee certain rights to the people in it. It's a written instrument embodying the rules of a political or social organization. Now coming to the word constitution. So the word constitution, it comes from a Latin word and it means an important law. And it was generally declared by a Roman emperor, the highest authority in the land. So this is how we, in very simple terms, define what is a constitution. A constitution is related with the government, as I've already stated, that a constitution is a thing antecedent to government, and a government is only the creature of a constitution. The constitution of a country is not the act of its government, but of the people constituting a government. It's the body of elements to which you can refer and quote article by article and which contains the principles upon which the government shall be established, the manner in which it shall be organized, the powers it shall have, mode of elections, durations, and all other things about the government. Okay. Now, with this brief I would say introduction and about the meaning and definition of the term constitution, we can now move on to the features of the Indian constitution. So the first and the very important feature is that, and we all must be knowing that Indian constitution is the world's longest constitution. Now, as it is the world's longest constitution, so we have 395 articles and 12 scheduled in our constitution that we all must be knowing. And after independence, especially after 1951, I'll say that about 90 articles have been added and 100 amendments have been made to the Constitution. Other important point or feature is that the Constitution that we have now is what it's an embodiment of different sources. Like the Constitution, for the Constitution, inspiration has been taken from various sources like the Government of India Act 1935, American Constitution, Irish Constitution, and specifically, if it needs to be stated, then the directive principles of state policy has been taken from the Irish Constitution, the cabinet form of government from the British Constitution, the structure of federalism, judiciary, governors, emergency power, and all from the Government of India Act 1935. Now, in addition to these, the Constitution of Canada, Australia, Germany, USSR, and France, they have also adopted various provisions. Now, after this, let's move on to the other important feature, and that is what? That is the many unity features such as we do have division of power and we do have dual system of government, but the central government is quite strong. All India services common to the center and states institutions that can transform constitution to a unitary kind, appointed governor by the president, only by the center, etc. Article 1 states that India is a union of states rather than a federation of states. In India, the states did not come together to form the center or union like in case of USA, which is the purest form of a federation. Rather, for administrative convenience, it is the center that created the states. Article 3 of the Indian Constitution makes Parliament the sole authority to create new states, clearly indicating that the Indian Constitution is of a unitary feature with certain federal characteristics. Another important feature is that we have a parliamentary form of government and that we have taken from British parliamentary system. And the executive is a part of the legislature. We have another important feature that is a balance between the sovereignty of parliament and judicial supremacy. So a fine balance has been struck between parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy by the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court is vacuumed by Article 13, 32, and 136 with the power of judicial review. By its power of judicial review, it can strike down any parliamentary law as unconstitutional. And on the other hand, the Parliament, being the representative of the people's will, has the authority to make laws and to make amendments using which article? Article 368. Another important feature is we have independent and integrated judicial system. So in India, what do we have? We have a hierarchy of judicial system. That is, we have Supreme Court at the top. Then we have the state and or district, the high courts, and then we have the subordinate courts. And it is the duty of all levels of court in India to enforce both central and state laws, unlike in the US, where federal courts adjudicate on federal matters and state courts on state matters. Taking another feature, what do we have? We have directive principles of state policy, and I have stated this particular feature. For this, we have taken inspiration from the Irish Constitution. And what is it? So, directive principles of state policy, these are quite kind of instructions that's being given to the state and the central government so that they work for the welfare of the people. Using these directives, the government works for the welfare of the people. And although these directives are inherently unjustifiable, but they are not enforceable for their violation by the courts. Then also implementation of directives is very important and quite fundamental to the governing country's governance. Then we have a combination of rigidity and flexibility, which means that there are certain provisions of the constitution that can be amended with simple majority. Some provisions can be amended with special majority. So we have a mixture of both rigidity and flexibility. And the procedure for amendment is there in Article 368. Then we have many other important features that are in our constitution, which we have not enlisted out here, but in general we know that we have fundamental rights, we have universal adult franchise, we are sovereign, we are republic, we are secular state. So religion is very important, but at the same time, the constitution makers have taken full care that the state that the working of the government and the religion, they are kept apart, but at the same time proper care is being taken that the religious sentiment of the people is not hindered, and it goes side by side with the proper functioning of the government and working of the state. So that is there in our constitution. Likewise, there are many other features, but I've tried to put in the most important features of the constitution out here. Now, based on this short discussion, we can move on to the criticism. And in very simple words, we can say, and we all know that the constitution is too bulky. It's a feature also, and at the same time, we can mark it as a criticism of the constitution that it's very big. And other important thing is that it's sometimes criticized as not being the original creation. Why? Because we have studied that source of inspiration is many. So therefore, it's said that we have taken the things from other constitutions, although it's not exactly correct to state it in that way, because that is not copying from the other things. It is what I call the taking inspiration from other constitutions. Then the constitution making body, that is the Constituent Assembly, is criticized of being dominated by one party, that is the Congress party, and sometimes criticized for being dominated by Hindu leaders at the same time. It's also said that the constitution is at times a compromise between two extreme things, like it's a compromise between federalism and unitary system. So both are quite distinct, but we have a compromise of the two. We have a compromise between rigidity and flexibility. That is how we amend the constitution. So that is how we cite few criticism of our constitution. But more or less, we can conclude now that the constitution is very important, and the constitution makers, they have taken full care that um, they have they did too much of labor, they have taken too much of pain in providing us with such a kind of a constitution that takes care of each and everything in the country and every sentiment of individuals at the same time. Our constitution is such that it takes care of individuals and the nation also at the same time together. So there are many other features, as I said, of the Indian Constitution, like fundamental rights, fundamental duties, emergency provision, universal adult franchise, etc. But the Constitution's most important features that define and distinguish it from the other world constitutions have been listed. So we should be proud of having a constitution like this, and we should be thankful for our constitution makers for providing us with a document which we call the Indian Constitution. So that is all. I'll say that is all about the most important features. Thank you.